Hey team, all good. Phil and myself are just going to talk about the team and the age group categories, the plan running up to their quarterfinals over the next 2 to 4 weeks. Just so you know the specifics, you know exactly what will be coming up, and you feel as prepared as possible for when your time comes to peak. Phil, you're going to be on a team, are you, for quarterfinals?
I am. I'm saying it with a sad voice, but I'm really happy about being on a team.
This is your first time on a team as well, isn't it? How are you finding it?
Well, I think it's a really nice pace of change. My whole life and my whole CrossFit career, I've really been just an individual. So it's nice to feel like the shared community of suffering with someone else when you're not actually competing against them, but more with them. Yeah. And I guess you can confirm that you being on a team for a lot of times. It's definitely a different experience than being individual, both in good and bad.
Yeah, agreed. I always found, for me personally, when I was on a team, I always found that on a team, I could relax a little bit more because I knew I would always do my hardest, like when it was my turn to, pick up the slack or do my bit. And then I could kind of relax a little bit when it was someone else's turn to do their bit, and I knew I could trust them. I enjoyed going team for that reason. How have you found that kind of trusting other people, and has it been hard? Has it been all right?
I mean, I found a really good group of people in the sense of they're just really easy to hang around and talk to. And so, I struck gold with them in the sense of just there's no hard edges anywhere. So I don't need to worry about anything in that sense. So that's really good. And that makes the whole experience a lot more enjoyable, for sure.
Yeah. Good. Right, I guess let's get into the specifics of this next block of training for teams in the age group categories. Just to clarify for everyone, you won't need to sign up to a new program. It will be another tab in the GST athlete program that Phil will be putting this in. Phil, take it away.
Cool. So first of all, we just need to acknowledge the shared similarities from the age group and the team quarterfinals, meaning that they will both go to quarterfinals. And by that, I mean the quarterfinals will test you differently than they did in the open. So if we're just looking isolated from last year's quarterfinals, we are more likely going to see higher level skills, more strength expressions, and also different kinds of workout in the sense of probably going to see some maybe 2 or 3 minute workouts. So we need to also practice some higher paced sprint workouts. So the training program is going to focus a lot on the same things. The only difference being that the quarterfinals for the teams is going to strike as more sooner than the age group quarterfinals. So the age group will have 2 more training weeks compared to the team's training week, but they will follow the same structure leading up towards it. It just cuts off at a different pace for the teams. So out here, I have outlined the coming 5 weeks, which is going to take us all the way through to the age group quarterfinals and take everyone through, which will probably be their season. So we have the first week starting at the 21st of March. I'm going to stretch it all the way to week 5 for the 24th of April. For the first 2 weeks, there will both be training for teams and the age group. On week 3, the quarterfinals will happen for the teams. The age group will still train. Teams, depending on if we have some teams qualifying for semifinals, we will discuss whether or not we're going to take and make some additional programming for the teams that will need some help leading up to that. If not, we'll take that into consideration. Yeah. Age groups is going to continue to train, and then the following week, the age group will have their quarterfinals. So it's really just one block stretch of 5 weeks of training for the age groups and 2 weeks of training for the teams.
Quick question. So if I'm one of the age categories or the teams, do I still do the individual quarterfinals, or would you suggest not?
It really depends on your goals, and I think that's an important question for you and your team to be clarified on. Because if one individual want to test where their limits are as an individual, it's definitely something that you and your team needs to talk about. It is doable in the sense that you can be an individual and then also compete on the quarterfinals. But what will happen is, you can see next week is going to be week 1 of the quarterfinals, which will ultimately give you 1 week of training with your team, and maybe not the most optimal way of preparing for team quarterfinals you need it. But if you're just doing team quarterfinals to have fun and really just have a good experience with your team, you can definitely do it. But just be aware that it will probably take 1 week out of the 2 away from your potential training with your team instead.
What about if you are a master? Would you suggest doing the individual quarterfinals? Because maybe potentially they could be similar. Is it worth, doing that if you're a master?
You could definitely do so. It really depends on, again, what your goal is. If you want to go to, I think it could make sense to do the quarterfinals just to also just practice the habits of doing a lot of workouts across one weekend. The Open is very different in the sense that you only have 1 workout each week and you have to perform separately. But the big difference for the quarterfinals is you have to be really focused across a whole weekend, and you really don't have the luxury of necessarily repeating everything. So it could be a good practice, and it's definitely something that I'm going to incorporate and give you the option to do. But it's all about what you feel like will gain you the most leading up to the goal that you set for the quarterfinals. Setting the goal for the season. So if the season is about getting to the high place as you can in the age group, I would probably think once or twice about doing all of the workouts in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I think Steve's made a good point at Wodapalooza, where he said, when you get to competition and do competition, you want to get to the stage where you aren't having to learn at competition. You're executing every workout like almost perfectly. Obviously, there's always going to be, little things that you will learn. But ideally, you can get to the stage where you get to competition and you've strategized everything to the best of your ability, and then you can execute the workout the best of your ability as well. So again, like Phil said, masters that are doing the individual quarterfinals, they may do a couple of workouts. It could just be some good practice for obviously in 4 or 5 weeks time when you do your age category quarterfinals.
Cool. So the big overall training goals is we want to peak. Like, we want to be in our tip top conditioning shape for the quarterfinals. Teams, age group, doesn't really matter. We need to be at our best at this point of the season, because most of us will realistically not be able to just cruise through the quarterfinals into the semifinals. So we need to be at a somewhat maximal peak conditioning level. What I mean by that is we need full throttle, all qualities, conditioning wise, strength wise, everything has to be somewhat at the top of their actual peak. We will of course make sure that even though we're doing a lot of conditioning, you're still able to hit some of your bigger numbers. So it's not a surprise for you if they come up with a max lift, or if they come up with a powerlifting movement in the actual test. We're also going to test some higher level skill and make that a little bit more accustomed to your system. So we're going to, especially last year, a lot of people were baffled by the 60 GHD sit-ups. So we're going to make sure that you're not going into the quarterfinals and feeling unprepared in any way. Just high level rope climbs, GHD, handstand walking, all that, making sure that it has been touched and it's not something that you feel is dusty at all.
Phil will tell you about the GHD sit-ups from yesterday.
You on the GHD after you did the 3 sets of 40 GHD and 40 pistols, and like, if you're not feeling that for today, I mean, I don't know what will make you feel anything. It crushed my soul deeply. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, the quarterfinal workouts is different in the sense of just overall structure. It can of course be a 15-minute AMRAP of just rotating around in a triplet, but it can also be like last year when we had a very short, high power output, power snatch, burpee, box jump workout. So we need to be able to go into that 6th gear and push it the hardest we can. So we're not just constantly going at 90%, and we're able to really throttle up. And most importantly for the teams, they need to be able to sync up with their partners, different timing levels of synchronization in gymnastic movement. When are they communicating? How are they communicating? Who is in charge in what different scenarios? Just to make sure that all the little communication details are in place before they actually go into the quarterfinals. So there's no misconception on anything. You can just go into it. It should feel like it's on your backbone, what you're about to do, how you're communicating, how fast your partner is moving. All that is just a vital part of being on a team, and especially when you have to do it synchro.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Like you said, I think dialing in synchro movements over the next couple of weeks, especially if you've not done much of it over the past, month or two, that's just, some easy gains that you can make just by knowing how your partner moves, like the speed of reps, just being really aware of that. So yeah, just some easy gains that can be made in the next 2 weeks for sure.
Yeah, really, really easy gains. So going into the weekly template, this is how the week is going to be laid out for the quarterfinals pass. So Monday through Sunday, we'll train regularly. What you see here on Monday is we're going to have some squatting, strength, heavy light. What I mean by the heavy light session is going to be alternating in relation to the deadlift strength. So you're not squatting heavy on the same week as you're squatting, on the same week as you're deadlifting heavy. So we're alternating back and forth between those two. We're going to hit some higher weightlifting percentages, and we're also going to do some heavy weightlifting cycling. So what we haven't been seeing in the open, like we usually do, is some sort of a ladder going into a heavier lift. So last in 2018, we had some heavy squat cleans from 60 kilos all the way up to 143, just so we're making sure that we're able to cycle barbells at a heavier medium load all the way up to somewhat of a 90% of your maximal load. Just making sure that we're able to move heavy weights, but also move them fast. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to finish off with some CrossFit intervals, some workout on Monday. Mm-hmm. Tuesday, upper body gymnastic strength. We're going to practice some different exercises. Deficit hands and push-up that you haven't been seeing. Some handstand walking, some general upper body pushing strength, pulling strength. Just give me 2 seconds. Wife get home. So we're just going to practice some upper body strength training. We're going to make it pretty specific in the sense of that we're going to make it deficit handstand push-up. We're going to make it some pegboard exercises just to build some strength, but in the gymnastic realm kind of training. After that, we're going to do some quarterfinals skill training, with the sense of we're just going to touch different skills that we know will probably be tested in the quarterfinals. We're going to do it in a fairly low intensity setting, just to make sure that you can actually practice your exercises, make improvements, make really intentional improvements on maybe your breathing pattern, your positionings, different areas that you think that you need to work on. And then we're going to finish off the day with some cyclical conditioning. If you are on a team, this is also going to be the day where you have your team training. Ideally, you will have 2 team trainings during the week. You'll have one on Tuesdays and you have one on Saturdays. Realistically, however, I know that Tuesdays can be potentially difficult for some people to gather all 4 people and train it together. So the goal should be that Saturdays, where most of us is on a weekend, should be able to gather up and have their big team training on Saturdays, but there will be an additional one if you have the time and schedule that will suit you for getting together there.
Quick question on that. Say, for example, the team can't meet on a Tuesday, but they can maybe meet on a Monday or a Wednesday instead. Would you suggest just swapping the days around? Would that work, or would you give another suggestion?
I think that would definitely work. The team trainings in most sense will be conditioning based. So there will probably be more CrossFit in the sense there will not be any strength training. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really make sense to do back squatting together. Yeah. So the team trainings will most likely be CrossFit based, skill based, conditioning based, meaning the best way, if you can meet on a Tuesday, would be to just swap the the CrossFit intervals maybe on Monday with your team training conditioning from Tuesday, and just swap the conditioning, but you're still doing all the strength, weightlifting, and heavy weightlifting cycle instead. So you're still getting the team qualities, but you're not having to switch around all your other training next to that.
Awesome.
Wednesday, deadlift, again, alternating. So when you're squatting heavy on Monday, the deadlift will be slightly lighter of nature. When you're squatting light on Monday, the deadlift would be heavier in nature on the Wednesday. Then you're going to do some barbell cycling, different variations. It's not necessarily following any linear progression. We're just making sure that all barbell cycling, light, heavy, squat snatches, power snatches, thrusters, everything is touched and is ready to go for when it's about time. So it's not as much about progressing in the sense of you will see in a linear squat progression, but we're just making sure that you feel ready and you feel like you have touched the exercise before, and it's not something that's gonna surprise you when it comes up on game day. Then quarterfinal style workout. This is one of the two major pieces on machine train your weekly training plan. So the quarterfinal style workouts here on Wednesday and on Saturday are really the two major points where you can dial up that intensity. The goal of this session is really to make sure that you're hitting this workout and your Saturday workout with full intensity and the same intent as if it was a quarterfinals workout. What we're not trying to do right now is to build your volume. What we're trying to do now is to make sure that you can express as much power and as much output across a given time frame as possible. We're not looking at how many necessary reps can you do within a minute. We're looking at what can you do within that given time frame that you're actually being tested in. So intensity is the name of the game. Of course, there's going to be a lot of workout across the week or across the quarterfinals. We will make sure that the volume is setting you up for that. But the most important thing is that you hit the workout with intensity as if you were actually about to hit a quarterfinal style workout. And then we're just going to finish off with some posterior accessory, just making sure that the posterior is functioning well and we're not leaving any stone unturned. Thursday, you have the option of active recovery or conditioning, depending on how you're feeling. If you feel okay, if you feel beaten up, you can choose either way. We'll make sure that you have an option for both. Friday, we're going to make some overhead squat progressions. We're making sure that the overhead squat is solid and it's not something that you feel uncomfortable with. It's going to go hand in hand with the heavy squatting on Monday. Just by nature, overhead squatting will not let you go as heavy as you would in a normal squat here. So the overall intensity here will be lower, but just making sure that if there's a heavy overhead squat in the quarterfinals, you have been up in your percentages and making sure that you have tried to put heavy weight overhead and then squatting it. Then some pretty basic strength accessory stuff, single leg, upper body strength, push and pull, and then some cyclical conditioning again. And then for the Saturday final day, heavy weightlifting. This is the day where you're going to go heavy, where you're going to really push your numbers. Again, a quarterfinal style workout, push the intensity, really try to get that quarterfinals-esque feeling in. You might be doing heavy lifting in the noon session, and then you have to come back and hit a hard metcon in the quarterfinals. So really get used to those Saturday sessions. And then we're going to finish off with some quarterfinals higher skill training. Again, just to touch all the different areas. Could be D-balls, it could be handstand walking, etc. Just making sure that we're not leaving any exercises up for reps and making sure that we're keeping the dust off the shelves.
I think an important thing to note is, obviously Phil said that the quarterfinal style workouts are the two days where you really want to push the intensity there. Bear that in mind, like when looking at the week as a whole, that means that right on the Tuesday, I know I need to kind of rein the intensity back maybe a little bit, or not push the cyclical conditioning quite as hard, so that maybe going into Wednesday you feel a little bit fresher. Just keep perspective of the week as a whole, because you can't push to 100% every day. So bear that in mind. Like Wednesday and Saturday are the days where you really want to be able to push 100%.
Mondays really. So if you're looking at days of large and small, the Monday will be big. Tuesday will be structured
yes
in a way that you can't, like the overall training will be structured in a way that is intended for you to be building but not tiring out. This is more, Wednesday will be a large session again, Friday kind of medium, smallish, and then Saturday big one again. So the overall training volume intensity is laid out in a way that makes sure that you can actually get out of the session what we're trying to do.
Another question. So is there anything, you know, as well as the training or in training that you would suggest people, you know, like focus on or maybe do that they don't usually do in training? For example, everyone might not strategize the workouts usually. Would you advise to do that? I don't know. Is there anything you would suggest over the next couple of weeks that people really dial in?
I think it's a very individual thing. What I recommend is if you're not already doing it, if you're following JST Athlete, you will have access to the JST. Sorry, I'm blanking out here. The mental.
Yeah, the mindset.
Yeah. Mindset journal, exactly. Sorry. I would just go into that day. It will take you through everything. Jack has laid out a perfect way to just think about goal setting within the day, in the long run, just setting small goals and setting 4 small focus pointers for each training session. I would just recommend going in, doing that before every session, because just the awareness of thinking about stuff and making a really dedicated, like trying to improve something is where you're all gonna start. So I would just do the mental, do the
mindset journal.
Journal.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good stuff. Anything else you want to touch on as the week as a whole?
Excuse me?
Is there anything else you want to touch on for the week as a whole? Anything else you want to emphasize?
Not really. What you can see here in the week 1 sample is I just programmed out Monday to Wednesday. And the first thing you'll probably notice is that the overall volume is not necessarily that high. But that is just really to reinforce the same thing as we just went over, that you're really intentional about each piece, giving it its dedicated amount of focus, this dedicated amount of intensity. So you're not just going through the motions, but you're really pushing where you need to push, and you're also taking a step back when you need to take a step back. I think that really covers everything. If you have interest in next week 1, it will be put out this night, so you can just, everyone that goes to the age group qualifiers at the team quals can just go in, have a look, and if there's any questions for it, they can just ask.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, Phil. That's
my pleasure.
I feel like when athletes know the why and a little bit more behind the programming, it tends to make more sense to them. So I feel like that was really helpful to help people understand what the plan is over the next 2 to 4 weeks. So thank you very much. Any final tips or notes you want to leave this on? Any? Woo.
Leaving it out there for me. No, I mean, staying consistent across the next 4 weeks and not letting things get ahead of yourself, I think it's the name of the game. Like there's still a lot of training sessions to be done. So if you're feeling like there's stuff that needs to be kind of fine-tuned, like you still have some solid training sessions to get after it and not feel like you're doomed just yet. Yeah, good stuff. Great tips. Thank you very much, Phil. We'll leave it there. And like I say, if anyone's got any questions, just drop us a message on Fitter. Cheers, Phil.